only Nantel.
How to stay away from holiday debts, Monday at 9.
From ABC News, Washington. This Week with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts. Featuring George Will. And our roundtable with ABC News analysts George Stephanopoulos and Bill Kristol.
This week, as a massive U.S. military force is deployed against Iraq, Saddam Hussein makes a last-minute appeal to the United Nations.
The Iraqi letter sent today to Secretary General Annan is neither unequivocal nor unconditional. It is unacceptable.
Will military action be averted, or will Iraq still be hit?
We'll ask Iraq's ambassador to the UN, Nizar Hamdoun, Senator John McCain of the Armed Services Committee, and former CIA Director John Deutsch. Iraq and the United States again on the brink this Sunday morning.
Welcome to our program. The confrontation with Iraq continues, and we understand in a few minutes the President of the United States will come to the briefing room at the White House to discuss it. We're told by his press secretary that Mr. Clinton has a statement of about 10 minutes in length as he discusses the latest developments. The last we heard, Cokie, of course, the letter from Iraq appearing to accept the UN inspectors back was unacceptable to the United States because it contained conditions.
And the British Prime Minister Tony Blair talked about that letter and whether the inspectors would be allowed back into Iraq this morning in London.
We need to be sure that every bit of this is bolted down. Saddam Hussein needs to know that we remain ready, willing, and able to strike.
That was British Prime Minister Tony Blair. The United States and the United Kingdom seem to be holding firm, but other members of the Security Council seem to be siding with Iraq in this, and we will now go to the Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations before the Security Council meets again this afternoon. Ambassador Nizar Hamdoun, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Ambassador Hamdoun?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm having a little problem with the earpiece, but I'm still seeing you on the monitor.
Good. Well, now, thank you for being with us. George Will is with us, as always, for the questioning. Ambassador Hamdoun, when your government says that unconditionally the inspectors can go back in, does unconditional mean that they can go to any site, any time, and monitor indefinitely your weapons program?
What we meant by that is that the UNSCOM will go back to work normally and under the rules and under the provisions of the Security Council resolution that were set before. And there will not be any restrictions on their work. That was we have committed ourselves to.
Including indefinite monitoring?
Monitoring included, of course. I mean, there is a very comprehensive and effective regime of monitoring.
Well, this morning, Richard Butler, the head of the arms inspection team, says that Iraq is just simply not telling the truth about its weapons, chemical and biological weapons, that there's 4 tons of VX has been made, that Iraq did stabilize it, did put it in warheads, and that no amount of propaganda can change that fact. Are those inspections, are you telling the truth about what we've learned through inspections?
Well, this is the real problem, that both parties have no trust for each other. We mistrust him, he mistrusts us. So we'll try to find a way, we should try to find a way to smoothen down all those kind of rough relations when there are governing Security Council resolutions and their provisions. There is the Secretary General, there is the other members of the Security Council. We'll have to find a way of working together constructively to try to finish up the disarmament job, which I think the bulk of it has been done.
Is there any reason for the United Nations, or particularly the United States, to trust the leader of Iraq, Saddam Hussein?
Well, again, on the two countries level, there is a lack of trust on both leaderships level. And Iraq has always called for a way of trying to open a channel of dialogue so that we could sort out some of those differences.
Ambassador, the letter from your government to the United Nations uses the word normal, as you've used it here now, that the UN inspectors will resume their normal work. Does that mean normal as it has occurred in the last 3 months, during which time the White House has said the inspection regime has been moribund anyway?
Well, the last 3 months, no, that was not normal because we have decided on the 5th of August to suspend our relations. What we mean by normal, that all the activities regarding the UNSCOM, regarding the IAEA, will go back to normal, and they could, just like they were doing.
Does Iraq have any objections to Richard Butler continuing as head of this operation?
At this point, no.
Why just at this point?
This is what we have decided under the appeals that we've gotten from the Secretary General and from the Russian President. We have decided to go back to the normal work with UNSCOM.
In your discussions with the Secretary General, has he indicated to you or in private committed to Iraq in any way a changed position with regard to lifting the economic sanctions? Is he committed to working toward lifting those sanctions?
Well, all what he has committed himself to and promised us that he will try his best in his capacity, because after all, the sanctions will have to be lifted by the Security Council and not by the Secretary General. But he said, he promised that he will try to give Iraq a fair case and a fair hearing at the Security Council by suggesting this comprehensive review, which we look forward to.
A number of Americans, as you know, believe that there's no dealing with Saddam Hussein, that in fact the only solution is effectively to dismember Iraq, to support the Kurdish rebels in the north and the Shiites in the south with aid and air power and, in essence, to foment their rebellions. What would be the reaction of the Iraqi government if such a policy were adopted by the United States?
Well, the people of the region and the people of Iraq are against that. They all want peaceful Iraq. They all want a stable Iraq, because you're not talking about stability of Iraq. You're talking about the stability of the whole region.
Ambassador, President Clinton says that the letter yesterday from Tariq Aziz saying that the inspectors come back is unacceptable because it contained conditions. Did it contain conditions?
No, it did not. And I was asked by some Security Council members yesterday to issue another letter to clarify the confusion that were created in Washington. And I did that, and I think everybody, I mean the majority of the council members at least, were satisfied with the clarification.
Excuse me, but what the president seems to be saying is that Iraq, in the person of Saddam Hussein, who is the leader of Iraq, must declare unequivocally that the conditions are not there, that the inspectors can come back under the UN resolutions and his own agreement at the end of the war, with no further suggestion of a review. Now, why doesn't he issue that letter?
No, the review has been already decided by the Security Council. Everybody in the Security Council, including the United States, have agreed in principle to the comprehensive review. We may carry differences on the modalities of the review, but that remains to be seen at a later stage. So this is not a condition, and therefore our decision to resume relations with UNSCOM is unequivocal and is unconditional.
With all due respect to you, Ambassador, why doesn't the head of your government, Saddam Hussein, make that same declaration that you yourself have just made?
Well, you know, all the permanent representatives here in the United Nations, they express and they bind their government's policies. The guys who were sitting in the Security Council yesterday discussing the issue of war and peace were representatives and were not heads of states.
In the question of the presidential palaces, you refer back to the agreement...
I've lost audio, please.
Can you hear me now, Ambassador? Can
yes,
you hear me?
Could you?
All right, fine.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, fine. The question of the presidential palaces, in the agreement that Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the UN, helped engineer last February, there seemed to be some ambiguity there, because after that agreement, your government continued to deny certain inspections for certain of the presidential palaces. Is that your position, that they are off limits?
No, that's not accurate, Sam. After February, there was visits to all the presidential sites, and UNSCOM was included, IAEA and other ambassadors from different countries, and they went all over the places. They took all the samples they wanted. They checked them. There are no traces whatsoever of anything prohibited. And all the inspections from February on up till the 5th of August all went smoothly without restrictions, and there was no problem. So this is what we mean by the normal work of UNSCOM in Iraq.
Ambassador, I'd like to go back for a moment to your statement about whether or not Mr. Butler was acceptable to Iraq as the leader of this effort. And you said something like, at this point. Does Iraq accept the UN's absolute right to determine the personnel that will do the inspecting in Iraq?
They usually do that. We don't choose the inspectors. We don't choose the teams that come over and...
And you accept the UN's right to do this?
Yes, of course.
You said that the attachment to the letter consisted of mere talking points. Why were they included?
They were including to try to enlighten the Security Council members of what we have told the 3 members before, Russia, China, and France. That was the purpose. There is nothing that have to do in question of the text and any way of attaching them, any association to them.
Thank you, Ambassador Hamdoun. We expect to be hearing from President Clinton shortly about exactly his reaction to those letters and the annexes. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Coming up next, former CIA Director John Deutch, and later, more on the crisis in the Gulf with a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, Senator John McCain.
From ABC News, This Week with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts. Brought to you by GE. From power generation to medical systems, we bring good things to life.
Of the many innovative products we've brought you over the years, there's none that touches your life every day more than this. Introducing the new Smart Water System from GE. Our monitor filtration system produces fresher, better tasting water, while our digital softening system makes the water softer, clothes cleaner and brighter. The incredible new Smart Water System for the whole home. Only GE could make technology so delicious.
In the global economy, companies can't afford to shut down. So America's largest generator of electricity never rests. Southern Company uses its resources to track the availability of oil, gas, and electricity 24 hours a day. We keep our customers up and running while saving them millions. So at the end of the day, they know we're still at work, keeping the power on. We are Southern Company, energy to serve your world.
Joining us now is the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency and former Deputy Secretary of Defense, John Deutch.
Sam, good morning.
Welcome to our program, Mr. Deutch. When it comes to whether Iraq, in fact, is continuing to develop biological and chemical and perhaps atomic weapons, they deny it flatly. Richard Butler says they're liars. What do you know?
Well, I think that from Saddam Hussein's record, we should be pretty clear that they are probably sequestering chemical and biological weapons somewhere in their country. Having active development programs, I think, is more unlikely as we speak. But the moment that they are left to go back to Saddam Hussein's government without inspections, I'm quite confident they would restart their development programs of chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons.
Well, I know you're not going to discuss all of our intelligence methods. On the other hand, do we know this ourselves, or do we just know it from what UNSCOM says?
I'm not going to discuss anything about intelligence methods because I have not been director and haven't been for 2 years. But I would think if we go all the way back to the record since the beginning of the Gulf War, from the time that we first found out that he had a nuclear program, everything points to the fact that he's serious about continuing to have nuclear capability, chemical capability, biological capability. All evidence points in that direction.
Does the CIA have an estimate, or when you were there have an estimate, as why he would act this way when if he just went along with the inspections, by this time the sanctions probably would have been lifted, the inspectors would have been gone?
Well, I think you have to spend some time thinking about what's going on in Saddam Hussein's mind. He's a person who doesn't care about his people. He cares about maintaining his authority. He's trying to build his stature in the region, and his conduct and his political actions today, the way he is using the United States back and forth on threatening to stop inspections, agreeing at the last moment to have inspections, this is all part of a thoughtful and effective, one must say, political strategy of bringing us to the brink each time.
You say effective. Has he once again boxed in the United States this time? We had all the allies, including the Arab states, behind us on Friday. Then he sends this letter on Saturday, and all of a sudden it's the United States and the United Kingdom alone.
Well, I don't think he's boxed in the United States at all. I do think that he has presented for us a very difficult choice. We cannot permit to have weapons of mass destruction in a person like Saddam Hussein on the one hand. On the other hand, it is a very difficult decision to take, not only to have airstrikes, but even in the larger extreme, to even take the measures on the ground that would be necessary to see his regime replaced by a more democratic regime who is better for security in the region and better for the Iraqi people.
Does that mean killing him?
Does that mean killing him? It means that he should be replaced as the head of his country. And I think that that is a political action that has to be taken over a long period of time, including with neighbors in the region, neighboring countries in the region, to show clearly that we are going to work together to have a post-Saddam Iraq with territorial integrity that will become part of the community of nations.
If the United States decided it was in the best interest of the world to kill Saddam Hussein, could we?
I don't know whether we could kill Saddam Hussein. We have a very wise, in my judgment, policy, executive order by many presidents.
Can we find him and get rid of him?
That would be very much of a conjectural and difficult to do, to be able to predict with precision where he is at any one point in time.
Let's unpack the meaning of what you've just said. Our original policy toward Iraq was disarmament through inspections on the ground and, if necessary, surgical strikes, which were supposed to work. Then our policy seemed to be containment. You seem to be saying containing Iraq won't work. It is impermissible for him to be, as the Soviet Union was, a nuclear-armed weapons of mass destruction power. Therefore, what do? You also say we want the territorial integrity of Iraq. We shouldn't dismember Iraq?
I don't think that we should dismember Iraq, but you're quite right, George. I think that the record up till now is that the policy of sanctions plus inspections is not enough. We see that by the periodic ability of Saddam Hussein to bring us to the brink each time. Inspections no longer, in my judgment, are sufficient for what the world should be doing.
Now, second, the record of air power is such that we cannot use air power as a means of arms control, disarmament, and non-proliferation. That won't work, will it?
Air power by itself cannot solve this problem.
So we have to contemplate the possibility of ground forces in large numbers in Iraq?
That's not at all what I'm suggesting. There's a long and important intermediate stage, which is for the United States to step forward and say that we are going to work as a matter of public policy to a change in the regime, the political regime.
How?
Well, one of the things you do is you bring together the nations in the region, all of the interested parties, Jordan, Turkey, working together, supporting whatever legitimate dissident groups there are.
Within the
show
country.
A willingness within the country, show a willingness to give economic assistance to a post-Saddam regime.
Sir, you can only support those groups within the country where Saddam's writ, where his infrastructure of terror does not run. Does that mean you're going to isolate the Kurdish area in the north and the Shiite areas in the south as independent provinces under our protection?
The only way you are going to have the kind of internal opposition arising in Iraq is if groups who are interested, whether they're in the south or in the north or in the west, wherever they are, unless they are sure that the United States and the community of nations in the area will support them if hostilities arise and will certainly give them...
But we're asking them to risk their lives. Can we protect them? Can they make that wager unless we have troops on the ground?
We don't necessarily have to have U.S. troops on the ground, but we have to have an ability to provide support to troops on the ground of some of these countries.
Troops?
Let me say one other thing to you, George, which is very important. You say they're going to be risking their lives. Iraqi people have been losing their lives under Saddam Hussein over the past 9 years. The plight of the Iraqi citizen is very, very serious indeed. So they're losing their lives all the time. Our issue is, should we move beyond just pointing to inspections to pointing to the need for a political change in the country?
Whose troops are going to be there to stand between the dissident Kurds and the rebellious Shiites and the Iraqi Republican Guards?
Eventually, there may be the need of a decision of U.S. troops, but we're a long way from thinking about that. There are other countries that have effective troops in the region. Yes?
I'm sorry, Mr. Deutsch, but our time is limited, and I want to ask about what happened yesterday. President Clinton, U.S. officials now confirmed, had given a go order. We had planes in the air headed toward Iraq to strike Iraq when that letter came. How did Saddam Hussein know to have this exquisite timing?
Well, I don't know what were the details of diplomatic negotiations between our country, properly so quiet. I don't know what went on between our country, the United Nations Security Council, and Saddam Hussein, but I imagine that a responsible leader of this country, the president certainly is that, before launching aircraft is going to give the leader of the other country an opportunity till the very last minute to say, okay, I back down.
Are you
so I think it takes quite a good deal of courage to pull the planes back, not only to launch them, but also to pull them back if there's a chance of avoiding conflict.
But are you suggesting that in some way the United States government said to Saddam Hussein's government, the planes are in the air, last chance?
I don't know what they said, but I'm sure there was very, very strong diplomatic efforts quietly going underway through the Security Council till the very last minute, and that's the way it should be.
You yourself said a moment ago that Saddam has this record of what Les Aspin called cheat and retreat, playing the United States, for instance, like a yo-yo. He's done it, and he did it this weekend, didn't he?
Which is why I'm proposing, Sam, that it's time now for the United States to be a little bit more forthcoming on the need to replace the political regime of Saddam Hussein, and to do so publicly and take those steps as events unfurl, which are required to do that.
Scott Ritter, who has been replaced as an inspector there, says that not only do they have the ability to produce the ballistic missiles, but there's a massive procurement program going on right now in Iraq, a secret procurement program. If that's the case, well, first of all, do you believe that is the case?
I don't know what's going on in Iraq right now. It is certainly the case that historically the Iraqis have made every effort, as you would expect them to, that's not surprising, to procure technology and equipment which will help them in their weapons of mass destruction
And if that's
programs.
the case, can we allow this current situation to continue?
The answer is we most certainly can't allow it to continue, which is why the president...
Does that mean, regardless of what the Security Council says, that airstrikes should take place?
I do not believe that under all circumstances airstrikes should take place. Certainly, if inspectors are allowed back into the country without conditions, there is no reason for this round of airstrikes. The question, Koki, that I'm trying to point to is what happens after airstrikes? And there, I do think we have to take a more aggressive U.S. policy, working with countries in the region to see the political regime of Saddam Hussein replaced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deutsch. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Koki. Thank you, George.
Coming up next, a key member of the Armed Services Committee, Senator John McCain.
I'm a CEO. I'm accountable to my shareholders. So when we needed a server-based network for 16,000 people, I wanted someone who'd be accountable to me. Then Dell came to see me. Dell delivered exactly what they promised, business-critical servers. As CEO, you'd kill for an original thought, for someone to come to you with a solution, not a problem. I didn't get a computer from Dell. I got a partner.
Be direct. Dell. Dell computers use Intel Pentium 2 processors.
There is a prison from which it is all but impossible to escape. Because every day that we choose to consume instead of save, we let something slip away. Investing is not just about stocks or bonds or annuities. It's about freedom.
How far will you go so that people can fly? How deep into darkness to bring a city to life? What depths will you dare to keep the world running smoothly? How far will the people of Texaco go to provide the energy the world needs?
Going down.
How deep is the ocean? Texaco, a world of energy.
Every moment, every dream, every challenge, for every step you take in life, there's GE, a financial partner you can trust. Take advantage of our expertise in insurance and investments and get the innovation you've come to expect. So think of GE when you think of insurance and investments for every step you take.
We're suing you.
What?
If you mess with these lawyers,
$30 million?
it could get ugly.
Hey!
That was completely out of line.
Yelling at
What if she gets him like?
I mean really ugly.
We're every bit as despicable and cutthroat as you say.
And we're not kidding.
I am the judge.
Then act like one.
All new Practice, ABC tonight, 10/9 Central.
One of our own is in need of a heart transplant.
I'm worried about Bobby, Doctor.
Now all you can do is pray.
Please don't let him die.
All new NYPD Blue, ABC Tuesday.
Joining us now from Singapore, Senator John McCain, a senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Welcome, Senator, and tell us, why are you in Singapore?
Well, I had intended to come here, but I'd also intended to go to Jakarta, and because of the unrest there, we had to cancel that part of our trip.
Speaking of unrest, what happens now, Senator, when the president has to decide, having said this letter from Iraq is unacceptable, whether to go ahead and launch strikes? Should he?
I don't think he's going to. I think it's pretty clear that he does not have the support that's necessary, and he said that his stated objectives were full and complete and unfettered inspections, and the Iraqis for now are willing to provide that. But the point here is that, again, we have allowed Saddam Hussein to set the agenda and put us on this roller coaster, which doesn't seem to end. So we need to do some things radically different in both the short term and the long term. In the short term, the next time he doesn't allow us to inspect a facility, that facility should be taken out very shortly thereafterwards. And in the long term, along the lines of what John Deutsch said, there is a growing consensus, not only in the United States but around the world, that Saddam Hussein poses an unacceptable threat and he should be removed. And I understand and paid attention to George Will's questions. It's a very difficult operation. It's fraught with difficulty, but we have to set up a resistance organization within Iraq. We can protect them, at least to some degree, with a no-fly zone, and it takes cooperation of surrounding nations. But as long as he remains in power, I think we're going to be faced with the possibility of his acquisition and possible use of weapons of mass destruction.
Senator George will draw you out on that in just a moment, but you said just now that that Saddam Hussein seems willing to allow that meaning an unconditional return of the inspectors. Why would you trust him?
For the short term?
I mean, why would you trust him?
I don't. Well, I don't trust him, and I predicted, Sam, 6 months ago we would be where we are today, and I predict that unless something changes, we're going to be there a few months from now. But what we demanded, what the National Security Advisor and the President said, the Iraqis are willing to give us at this moment, and but that's why we have to change this equation.
And each one of these times that Saddam Hussein brings the United States to the brink and then does what he does, is he strengthened?
Oh, absolutely, especially when the 17 cruise missiles were launched. But let me just mention one other terrible aspect of this. We have a less capable military. We're losing good men and women. We cannot keep them deployed in this fashion. We are losing some of our best people, including our pilots, not to mention the cost to the taxpayer. But we simply do not have a military that can continue to be deployed for extended periods of time at billions of dollars of expense and expect to maintain a strong and viable military, which this administration has neglected to a significant degree over the past few years.
You in answer to Sam's question about should the president do airstrikes, you said you didn't think he would, but should he?
Oh, I think you could make an argument both ways, but I don't think he should now because his demands are being met. But he cannot keep cannot pursue this policy of demanding inspections and having us be placed in a position where we react every time Saddam Hussein acts. I hope this will force a change in policy and one that can be supported not only by the American people, but other countries as well.
Senator, are we not in the following surreal position? That is, we are threatening to go to war to preserve an inspection regime that, on the evidence of Scott Ritter and the hearings you and your fellow members of the committee conducted, we subverted.
Yes. It is a paradox of incredible proportions, and yet at the same time, the President of the United States, not the Secretary of State, but the President of the United States stated unequivocally that he demanded free and unencumbered inspections, and in return for that, we would not launch these military strikes. He's getting that. Now, despite the machinations and their desire to change the policy to economic sanctions and possible military force, we have to change the equation now. But at the moment, the demands that the President of the United States made and was what the motivating factor in gaining this coalition are being satisfied, at least as usual, very temporarily.
You heard a moment ago Mr. Deutsch talking about the possibility of our supporting Shiites in the south, Kurds in the north, rebellions. The worst massacre in Europe in 50 years occurred in Srebrenica, which was a UN safe area. They bet their lives on us, and they're all dead now. Why would anyone trust us?
Srebrenica was a situation, as you know, which is one of the horrible tragedies and a blot on the United Nations as well as the Dutch military. We have to understand how difficult this is, how complex it is, how important it is for us not to bug out and allow them to be massacred, as, by the way, happened in the 70s and to some degree happened just a few years ago. There has to be that commitment.
Didn't Saddam Hussein roll up a CIA operation and Kurdish dissidents who'd bet their lives on us in the north already?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
On what basis can we hope that people will risk their lives again?
On the basis that that we will make that kind of commitment, and it will be made by countries in the region. George, it is a terribly difficult option. It is one fraught with danger and uncertainty. But I don't know any other option right now besides acquiescing to having a person in power who will sooner or later have or use a weapon of mass destruction.
What about the option of just killing him?
I don't think we can do that. We tried for a long time with other people, as you know. I don't think we can do that for several reasons, including I don't think it's a practical option. I don't think we know where he is from 1 hour to the next. But I believe that it has to be, his regime also has to be overthrown.
Senator McCain, the same question we asked John Deutsch. Planes were in the air, we now know. B-52s headed for Iraq to launch cruise missiles. And then Saddam Hussein sends this letter and saying, well, I'll do this or that. How did he know? Do you think he knew?
I'm not sure that he knew exactly, but I mean, all of us knew that it was coming very soon. Also, as you know, we had to keep all of our allies, like the French, informed as to what we were doing. But I think that it's hard for me to judge exactly how he knew it, but it doesn't surprise you or me, Sam, that as we walked up to the brink that he would pull back. I mean, that's been his track record, and he's done so very successfully.
Senator, if the planes were in the air, why not just go ahead and let them strike, and then say, well, we didn't get the letter, we'd launch the planes?
Well, I think the president's going to come on nationwide television and explain all that to the American people.
Senator, are you suggesting the French or any other of our, what we smilingly call allies, might have tipped him off?
I can't make that charge, George, but I think that just by knowing what the media was reporting indicated that we were very, very close within days, if not hours.
Thank you, Senator McCain. Thank you very much for joining us today. Next, our weekly roundtable with ABC News analyst Bill Kristol and George Stephanopoulos in a moment.
I remember the first time I met Kevin. He was 16 years old. I asked him if he had any plans for the future.
I said, go across the street and play games. I mean, I had no idea he was talking about that kind of future.
We started spending some time together. I helped him with his homework. I got him thinking about a career. Then one day I took him on a college tour.
Wow, it's a great feeling.
He got a glimpse of what he could be.
College Bound is a mentoring program run by GE employees and retirees. Their investments of time in participating high schools have doubled college admissions in 5 years. And by the year 2000, GE employees will volunteer 1 million hours a year.
Seeing Kevin graduate from college was one of the proudest days of my life.
And when I got that diploma in my hand, I just wanted a way to say thanks. Becoming a mentor myself seemed like the best way.
This Week with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts will continue in a moment after this from our ABC stations.
Imagine having to be perfect.
Elvis Storko competes today at 4 Eastern on ABC.
We get really dry skin.
Dry, itchy skin.
And ordinary moisturizers just aren't enough.
For dry, itchy skin, the leading non-medicated moisturizers all fall a little short compared to new Gold Bond medicated body lotion. Only Gold Bond has a triple action formula that replenishes your skin with 3 moisturizers, stops itch with a proven medicated itch fighter, and soothes and protects with dimethicone.
With Gold Bond, the dryness is gone.
The itch is gone.
New Gold Bond medicated body lotion. More than a moisturizer, it's medicated.
This year, Lincoln took the road and added a few new curves to it. And now, for good measure, your Lincoln dealer has given it a nice round number, only $33,700 after $5,000 cash back. At that price, maybe you should take all this sitting down. Of course, if you still need a little more time to let it sink in, we'll run it by you again. So if you want to add a few new curves to your favorite stretch of road, see your Lincoln dealer. Lincoln Town Car, what a luxury car should be.
Caught in a Cold, tonight at 6 on Town Hall.
Well, this whole week it seemed like we were in reruns with Saddam Hussein threatening, the United States threatening back, going right up to the brink, and then Saddam Hussein supposedly capitulating. Do we have an Iraq policy, George Will?
Sure, and it's a serious one. The trouble is it's the serious commitment to a fundamentally unserious UN regime, which is to disarm a country either with inspectors on the ground or with airstrikes, and it can't be done.
I should say before we continue that we are expecting to hear from President Clinton at any moment from the White House briefing room, and of course we will go to that briefing as soon as he comes to the briefing room.
Let me just add to this. We are in the position, as Senator McCain indicated, we are going to the brink of war in defense of an inspection regime which unquestionably our own Secretary of State was subverting.
Well, that's the macro policy, perhaps. But the micro policy, I'm convinced, was, and the U.S. officials now confirm, to strike Iraq. Planes were in the air. What surprises, I think, a lot of us is that they found the letter unacceptable, and yet now we all believe we're not going to strike Iraq. We're going to go back to
Just a technical point. I don't think they found the letter unacceptable. They found the attached talking points unacceptable.
But that was part of the letter as far as they determined.
No, but Sam, first of all, if indeed the inspection regime can go back in, then that is a reason not to strike. We shouldn't be so eager to rush in with bombs. But there is one other constant in the current policy, and that is the sanctions. And that means that the Iraqi people consistently throughout the last 7 months are the losers. And there's no end in sight to that policy.
But George, don't we just have to do it again then? Don't we have to march up the hill the next time he decides to not fulfill his promises?
But that doesn't mean we have to strike. If he comes back and puts the inspection regime in.
We'll strike then, later.
We do have to strike, and we have to strike in order to depose him, not to restore an inspections regime that the Secretary of State said this week is not working. We've had no inspections for 8 of the last 12 months. It is, and I do think we should not, it has a little bit of a Groundhog Day element to it, but I do think yesterday was a decisive moment. I really do think in the Clinton presidency. To back down when airplanes are on the way, when you've actually begun to develop a more coherent Iraq policy, where you are looking towards a serious, sustained military offensive and a political strategy to depose Saddam, and to back down, I think, is really, it's a very bad day for the United States.
It's pretty clear that the current policy isn't working. The people are suffering from the sanctions and the regime is not.
Right.
And the inspectors keep coming back and saying they've got all this stuff. They've got biological weapons, they've got chemical weapons, they've loaded warheads with biological and chemical weapons, and they've got nuclear capabilities and are procuring more nuclear
So if we've reached the judgment that the inspection regime can't work and Saddam has to go, then let's be clear about that. That's what John Deutsch was saying a little bit ago. At least let's be clear about what our policy is. But Bill, I just have to disagree. If the president, John Deutsch was right about this as well, it does take courage once the planes are in the air to pull back the planes if you have a chance for diplomacy to work.
But diplomacy working means diplomacy going back to doing what it has been doing, which is presiding over a failure. Now, what John Deutsch really said was, you have to get rid of Saddam Hussein, and he put down some markers. You have to be prepared to get people to risk their lives on the basis of U.S. guarantees. Frankly, that requires leading American public opinion. It requires a serious, believable president. The question is, do we have one?
But another thing is, let me just say that if you then stand down on the basis of what you can call or believe is now an acceptable surrender, why believe Saddam Hussein? He's going to do it again. We're going to have to go through this exercise again. Are we free for 6 months and now launch planes again?
Sam, all these troops deployed over there, as John
that
McCain
policy
said,
is a foolhardy policy, if that's our policy, which can lead to nothing but disaster for us.
Yes, Cokie rightly points to the fact that it was fighter pilot John McCain who was also speaking. You can't keep that gun cocked indefinitely. Not just the expense is horrendous, but the human costs are terrible for fighter pilots and all the rest to be on alert like this on an aircraft carrier months on it. It can't happen. And Saddam Hussein knows that.
The other question I have is the United States running U.S. foreign policy, or is the United Nations running U.S. foreign policy? I mean, it does seem that each time we get up to this brink, it's Kofi Annan who pulls us back from it. Is that an additional concern?
Sure, or is Saddam Hussein running U.S. foreign policy, since he sends a letter and suddenly we back off after saying that never again, the President and the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense said this repeatedly over the last year, never again will we be toyed with by Saddam Hussein, and yesterday he toyed with us one more time, and we backed down.
But
it's worse than just, that we're deferring to Kofi Annan. I really think the degree to which we have now backed away from the brink, and the President is basically saying he is going to hand over to his successor a world in which Saddam Hussein will have developed or will be on the verge of developing weapons of mass destruction. That's what the meaning of yesterday is.
But it is, in fact, our partnership with the UN that got us here in the first place, because the reason George Bush did not turn left and go to Baghdad is that the UN mandate was only to expel Saddam Hussein from Kuwait, and that had been done. So we began this long, dreary downhill slog because we had accepted the fact that our mission would be defined by the UN.
Well, we do live in a world with other people. And
always have, Sam.
Yes, but we, for the first time, live in a world where we're the only superpower. And the world is calling on us to do all kinds of things, which gives us certain rights.
Well, it gives us rights, but we have the responsibility not to go it alone. Yes, we have to be credible, but we cannot be the policeman of the world, and we would not be credible in the Arab world if we went in alone.
Hold on a sec. We live in a world with other people, and we need to bring them along. It's just like a political leader in this country cannot move without the will of the electorate, without the will of the people, if you can't convince them. If we can't convince other nations, then George is right. We have to go it alone. And if we do that repeatedly, let's just say that this would be the president.
Or if we cannot convince
I think that won't work either.
If we cannot convince other nations, maybe there is a flaw in our policy.
Oh, come on, George. A lot of the reason we can't convince other nations is because they've got their own self-interest in wanting to sell oil.
Just as we have self-interest as well, but that is no excuse for us going into Iraq alone without the support of the Arab countries, without the neighbors of Iraq, and we wouldn't be able to succeed.
We had the support of the Arab countries. We had on Thursday a very strong statement from 8 Gulf states, the big ones and the small ones. That's why, once those planes were launched, they should have been allowed to strike.
But George said we can't be the policeman of the world, and I really disagree. There are times when we have to be the policeman of the world. The only thing worse than a world in which we are the policeman and we assume the responsibilities that involves is a world in which there is no policeman. And that, with weapons of mass destruction able to be made in the way they can be made these days, I think should be unacceptable. Should be unacceptable to any American president. Now that does mean, George, what you're about to say, I'll take the words out of your mouth. No, it does mean we have to be serious, and it does mean we have to be willing to have a long-term political and military strategy. It means, for example, we can't rule out the use of ground forces ultimately in a place like Iraq or in a place like the Balkans.
Okay, and then let's go to the American people and say, do you support the cost that it will entail? Do you support the ground troops? Do you support the commitment? I think
now that's the language of poll taking. You go to the American people.
That is not poll taking. It's language of democracy.
They're there now.
There is more to democracy than asking people, do you already support this? That is asking what opinion is. A leader leads public opinion.
You have to bring the country along, George. Look what happened in Vietnam. They did not bring the country along, and then there was no support when things went badly.
Well, to begin with, public opinion supported American policy all the way through the Vietnam War, but beyond that, all I'm saying, maybe I'm quarreling too much with making a semantic quibble here with George. And say you don't ask the country, do you support? You say, this is why we have to do these things.
Well, in Vietnam, public opinion first supported the war because public opinion was lied to.
Right. And then you ask them, you can leave, but it does matter over time if the country supports you.
Well, we're gonna take a little break here and come back with more and talk about more leadership in just a minute.
Because there is a man in Chicago planning his retirement this year. Because there is a family in Boston who hopes to send their kids to college someday. Because there is a doctor in New York looking forward to the day she will open her own clinic. Because the dreams of every investor continue to change in a complex world, so too have we. Which is why at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, we measure success one investor at a time.
And now, a story of life and death.
John was brilliant. We'll miss his brilliant conversations.
John knew everything. We'll miss his knowledge.
John wrote that consolidated contract and didn't even tell us where he put it.
Now they're really consumed with grief.
If only they knew. John scanned all of his documents into the Xerox Document Center. He made them digital and put every last one of them on the company website.
I wonder what John would do in this situation.
You check your website to see that the Xerox Document Center scanned in the consolidated contract.
Yeah, I just had a thought.
Oh, there's a good place to start.
You don't think John scanned the contract into the
Xerox Document Center?
Xerox Document Center, do you?
John was smart, but he wasn't that smart.
I don't think John liked that.
Keep the conversation going. Share the knowledge. The Digital Document Company, Xerox.
No map. No signposts. Not one familiar landmark. You're looking for a way to link your company's tax and business strategies, and you didn't bring a guide. Hope you brought a lot of water.
On 2020 tonight, convicted of murder, a fugitive of justice, an international manhunt, only Connie Chung catches America's most wanted fugitive.
How did her body end up in your steamer trunk, in your closet?
On 2020 tonight.
The last time Denver lost, last year on a Monday night. This is one tough show. The undefeated Denver Broncos meet Kansas City Monday on ABC.
Well, we're still standing by for President Clinton to come to the briefing room at the White House. We were told that he would be there at 10:30 this morning, but as you see, even though the flags are ready, he is not.
Reporters reading newspapers.
Reporters are getting less ready. If the president does come, you can be sure that we will bring you to him right away to give us the latest on the situation in Iraq. But we're back to talk about what's happening here at home, where this week in the House of Representatives, both parties will be choosing their leaders. And of course, the big fight is on the Republican side, where Dick Armey, the majority leader, seems to be in deep trouble. Bill, what do you think is happening there?
I think he's in trouble. People would like a change. Neither of the two announced challengers to him, Jennifer Dunn of Washington or Steve Largent of Oklahoma, have picked up the necessary votes. There's a lot of talk that Denny Hastert, who's a very popular member, he's a deputy whip right now, might be drafted to get into the race. I think it's wide open.
It's very interesting how this is happening. I mean, last week we found Bob Livingston suddenly as the new Speaker of the House like that, and then all of a sudden they move down to the next guy and start fighting it out there.
And they probably do have to replace him, because if they don't, then their leadership will still be three Southern white males. That's still the face of the Republican Party that a lot of Republicans are uncomfortable sending out. So I think that there is a chance by the end of the week that at least you'll have a Midwesterner, Denny Hastert, the dark horse, coming in.
I'd like to point out, by the way, in this point, that everybody keeps talking about this with the Republicans. The Democrats have a bunch of white guys in their leadership. And this week, there is a challenge to Martin Frost running for caucus chair by Rosa DeLauro. And there's this sense of, well, what's the problem? Women already vote Democratic, so why should we give them anything?
Well, Kofi, you're quite right. Women should take place in the leadership. But the business about the face of the Republican Party, that's interesting, George, because I think you're right. The ideology may not change. I mean, Bob Livingston and I think Newt Gingrich agree on most things. They don't disagree. But Livingston presents a very much warmer face. He's not going to be the flamboyant, flamboyant guy.
I don't know.
Yes, some days no.
I like Bob Livingston. I think you're the first person since Bonnie Livingston who's accused him of having a particularly warm face.
Let me put it this way. When Speaker Gingrich early on came on our program and we were talking about welfare reform and suggested if there was a problem with children where they're not orphanages, I don't think Mr. Livingston, he may feel that way too, he won't say it. And so Dick Armey, I think, is in the same camp.
The orphanage camp, you mean?
Well, what I mean is, with all due respect, the television appearance, if the Republicans are saying, I want to get on C-SPAN or anywhere else, he comes across real tough, as opposed to warm and cuddly and feeling your pain.
A
Maybe not like the
cuddly
master, but to some
Republican
extent.
Party. Is this what you've always wanted?
It's oxymoronic. This is more interesting than momentous. I mean, 6 months down the road, the Republicans will have an agenda or not, and they're not going to get it from the top down. It will bubble up through the party, but it would help if the Republicans were a bit more telegenic. And to be more telegenic, it would help to have a woman and African-American and J.C. Watts. But beyond that, I mean, we are talking somewhat cosmetics.
And whoever gets this job is going to be in a very difficult spot. Being majority leader with a 6-seat majority is tough. And I think this is an opening for Congressman Gephardt. He, on individual policy issues over the course of next year, may be co-speaker. If he can ever convince 6 to 12 moderate Republicans to come over to his side, he's managing the House of Representatives.
Well, they're likely to be different coalitions on every issue coming up for the next few years. And the real question of agenda is the one George brought up. The agenda so far, the coming week, impeachment, whether they like it or not. And a lot of Republicans are saying they don't like it. But the impeachment hearings begin this week.
They do, and the
George, do you think that this is going to be a great moment for the Republicans and for the Congress?
This whole episode's been rather short of great moments. One of the lowlights this week was when 400 historians, Mr. Clinton's poodles all, signed on to the document that they said the Constitution explicitly, their word, explicitly says that impeachment is only for high crimes and misdemeanors directly attached to executive action. Well, it does no such thing, but this is just, everyone gets degraded by this.
I think
they are going to have to decide whether or not sustained and calculated criminality is an impeachable offense. They'll very likely say no, with interesting consequences for presidential leadership in years ahead.
I think the interesting thing was Arthur Schlesinger Jr., who at the time of Mr. Nixon's impeachment wrote a treatise in which he said, almost in so many words, I don't have them right in front of me, but I have the sense of it, that a crime against the criminal code, obstruction of justice, was an impeachable offense, but who argued this time that simple crimes against the criminal code are not impeachable offenses.
This hypocrisy is nothing new in this fight. I mean, it's going to be pretty hard for Ken Starr not to beat expectations. I mean, he's about the least popular man in America right now, but he didn't help himself coming into this week.
No, he didn't.
To indict Webb Hubbell for the 3rd time after the man spent 2 years in prison, to send up the Kathleen Willey referral when he doesn't have any more evidence of impeachable offenses, even though George's point is well taken, was just ludicrous.
I think that's really true, Bill. Bill, I mean, didn't he just set himself up?
Well, he doesn't have the best public relations sense of anyone in Washington, I suppose. I mean, I do think it would be nice if he calmly and systematically tells people what he found, repeats the core of the referral, that there was systematic and repeated perjury and obstruction of justice, and then simply leaves it in Congress's lap to decide what to do about it. I hope he doesn't follow the advice, actually, of some conservatives who say, this is your chance to throw in all the stuff that you didn't put in the referral. Presumably, when he wrote the referral 2 months ago, he thought that the one set of impeachable offenses revolved around the Paula Jones, Lewinsky, perjury, and obstruction of justice. And I think he should stick to his guns and not follow bad advice that somehow this is the moment to lay out a lot of other stuff,
We should point out here that also he made some mistakes going into this. The president's team made a good decision settling the Paula Jones suit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, now the president's defenders will say, well, the suit went away, therefore, even if it was perjury, it doesn't matter anymore. Of course, that's not the law, but they can say what they want. At the risk of George Stephanopoulos jumping down my throat saying it's over, to use one of the White House phrases, I may be the last man standing. I think the committee will look at the evidence. And if the evidence strongly suggest the president commit crimes. They will issue
look at the evidence.
The committee's
evidence is what you look at in court. They will, in fact, vote articles of impeachment, and the floor will have to deal with it.
They will, but thank goodness the Paula Jones case is over 4 years too late. But thank goodness we will not see her or the president on this issue anymore.
Just think, if they had settled this case 4 years ago.
May 5th, 1994.
She made a deal with one of the television people, not ABC, for a lot of money to speak. So we will hear from her before. Again, rather.
Sam and I will be back in just a moment.
Because there is a man in Chicago planning his retirement this year. Because there is a family in Boston who hopes to send their kids to college someday. Because there is a doctor in New York looking forward to the day she will open her own clinic. Because the dreams of every investor continue to change in a complex world, so too have we. Which is why at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, we measure success one investor at a time.
And now, a story of life and death.
John was brilliant. We'll miss his brilliant conversations. John knew everything. We'll miss his knowledge.
John wrote that consolidated contract and didn't even tell us where he put it.
Now they're really consumed with grief.
If only they knew. John scanned all of his documents into the Xerox Document Center. He made them digital and put every last one of them on the company website.
I wonder what John would do in this situation.
You check your website to see that the Xerox Document Center scanned in the consolidated contract.
Yeah, I just had a thought.
Oh, there's a good place to start.
You don't think John scanned the contract into the
Xerox Document Center?
Xerox Document Center, do you?
John was smart, but he wasn't that smart.
I don't think John liked that.
Keep the conversation going. Share the knowledge. The Digital Document Company, Xerox.
No map. No signposts. Not one familiar landmark. You're looking for a way to link your company's tax and business strategies, and you didn't bring a guide. Hope you brought a lot of water.
On 2020 tonight, convicted of murder, a fugitive of justice, an international manhunt, only Connie Chung catches America's most wanted fugitive.
How did her body end up in your steamer trunk, in your closet?
On 2020 tonight.
The last time Denver lost, last year on a Monday night. This is one tough show. The undefeated Denver Broncos meet Kansas City Monday on ABC.
Recapping today's developments in the confrontation with Iraq, the crisis has eased. President Clinton says that Iraq has backed down completely. It has now accepted unconditionally the return of the UN weapons inspectors. But the president said, as he addressed the nation from the White House press room, that until we see complete compliance, we will remain vigilant and keep our pressure up and be prepared to act.
And the president also made it clear that the United States is now prepared to see the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. For the latest on the crisis in the Gulf, watch World News Tonight Sunday with Carol Simpson at the dinner hour. ABC's coverage of the story continues tomorrow.